Hello viewers, standing in front of you is Mr. Kiburi, history and government teacher. Today I want to teach topic on national philosophies. That is topic 4 in Form 4. So yesterday in the previous lesson I did introduction of national philosophies, and definition of national philosophies refers to a set of ideologies set or prepared by the ruling government and is widely accepted by the citizens. I repeat, definition of the concept of national philosophy is a set of ideologies prepared by the ruling government and is widely accepted by the citizens. In this topic, we have already looked at two philosophies, that is African socialism. African socialism is one national philosophy that we discussed. The second is Harambee. Harambee is our next philosophy. And finally, we are going to look at Nyayo philosophy. Nyayo philosophy. In the previous lesson, I covered introduction to this topic, that is national philosophies. I did define the concept of national philosophies. I discussed in detail the concept of African socialism as a national philosophy. I said African socialism was a national philosophy prepared by independent government, that is KANU government in 1965. It was contained in sessional paper number 10. Sessional paper number 10, this is a government blueprint of development that was prepared by the then Minister for Planning and Finance, that is Tom Mboya, is the one who came up with the African socialism as a national philosophy in 1965. This philosophy was titled African socialism, and its application to planning in Kenya. The then president, Jomo Kenyatta, was the brainchild of this national philosophy because he wanted Kenya to have a blueprint to tackle three key challenges of ignorance, challenge of poverty, and challenge of disease. Those three key issues were the ones that government was trying to address using this blueprint of African socialism. We discussed in detail the features of African socialism, for example, diffusion of property, that is property to be moved from the whites to Africans. I also mentioned about democracy, concept of democracy where Africans were allowed to participate in decision making. Those issues affecting them, they were given the opportunity to decide on their own. I also outlined the significance of this national philosophy, African socialism, and I want to begin on the second national philosophy, that is Harambee. Harambee. Harambee is a Swahili word that means pulling together. Swahili word for pulling together. Harambee means pulling together. Means pulling together. It was prepared by the first government in Kenya, that is in 1963, 1964, where the then President Kenyatta developed this concept from African traditions. So we can basically say origins of Harambee philosophy is from African traditions and customs. African traditions and customs. Because it is a Swahili word telling people to pull together so that they can tackle common challenges. After this definition, we need to look at features of Harambee philosophy. Features or characteristics of Harambee philosophy include unity. One is unity, where all Kenyans were called upon to take part in contributing their efforts, their resources to tackle the challenges that Kenya was having. And the three challenges that Kenya was having was ignorance, poverty, and disease. So all Kenyans were called upon to come together so that they could tackle the challenges. So one feature of national philosophy Harambee was unity. Another feature is volition. Volition means they were expected to volunteer. They were not expected to ask for payment to contribute their efforts, their resources. So volition. Another feature of Harambee is free participation. Free participation. Free participation. No one was to be forced to participate in Harambee. No one was to be forced to take part in community projects. So free participation was also another characteristic of Harambee. Another feature is democratic participation. Democracy. That is, Kenyans were encouraged to feel free to make choices. They were made free to make choices. No one would be forced to accept or reject a certain project. And finally, another feature of national philosophy Harambee was determination. Kenyans were encouraged to have a specific goal to achieve whenever they were pursuing the Harambee philosophy. Having said that, I want us to look at the projects that were undertaken using the philosophy of Harambee. Categories of projects that were implemented in the Harambee philosophy. Included the following categories. I will start with economic projects, such as bridges building, bridges construction. Kenyans were invited to contribute labor, resources, and whatever they were having to construct bridges, access roads, planting trees, and afforestation programs, just to mention a few. Those are some of the examples of economic projects that were undertaken by Harambee. We also have the second category, that is social projects that were implemented in the Harambee philosophy. Examples include education facilities, for example, schools, laboratories. Schools were constructed. Laboratory in schools were constructed and equipped using the fundraisings where Kenyans were invited to contribute their resources. Another one, health facilities, hospitals, health centers, dispensaries, labs were constructed and equipped from the resources that were acquired from the fundraising projects that Kenyans contributed for such implementation of such projects. Another social project that was undertaken was provision of what? Provision. You're going to edit, eh? You will edit, eh? Hapo. Two. Sports grounds were also constructed from the efforts of Harambee. Social halls, churches, mosques, just to mention a few, were implemented from the resources that were raised from Harambee. Impact or significance of Harambee. Significance of Harambee philosophy. Significance of Harambee philosophy. What was the change that was brought about by Harambee? Significance of Harambee philosophy in Kenya. Harambee philosophy in Kenya. Significance. One, education. Education was promoted. Education was promoted as many schools were constructed. They were equipped. Schools were constructed. Schools constructed and equipped across the country. And equipped across the country. So there was a significant growth in education sector because Kenyans were contributing their resources to construct schools. They would also equip those schools. They would also employ teachers from the resources they contributed from fundraising. Another significance is health sector. Health sector was boosted as hospitals, health centers, dispensaries, laboratories were constructed and equipped, constructed and equipped. So in the end of the day, Kenyans were able to enjoy better healthcare system from the efforts of coming together and raising resources to expand the health sector. Another one is agriculture was boosted. Agriculture was boosted. For instance, through soil conservation measures, that were undertaken by the community, So at the end of the day, Kenyans were able to enjoy food security. Another one, what else? Harambee encouraged the concept of national unity. National unity was enhanced. National unity was enhanced as it encouraged all people to participate, as it encouraged all people to take part, as it encouraged all people to take part in the projects. So at the end of the day, Kenyans became more integrated. Another one, the needy were assisted. The needy got assistance. For instance, children from poor backgrounds were financed to receive education, were funded to receive education locally or even abroad to receive an education. And finally, another significance of Harambee as a national philosophy was it was able to redistribute wealth. It encouraged redistribution of wealth, redistribution of wealth, where the wealth was able to be moved from the hands of the rich to the hands of the poor, and therefore there was more equity in the country. That is Harambee spirit or Harambee philosophy. The next philosophy that we're going to discuss is Nyayo philosophy. Nyayo philosophy is our next philosophy. Nyayo philosophy. Nyayo is a Swahili word. Nyayo is a Swahili word, just like Harambee. Swahili word for footsteps. Footsteps. It was developed by President Moi. President Moi, after the death of the first president of Kenya, Jomo Kenyatta. So President Moi promised Kenyans, I will follow the footsteps of Kenyatta. Whatever policies Kenyatta's government had embraced, had put in place, he promised Kenyans he was going to implement those policies. And that's why we are getting the word Nyayo, which means footsteps. Origins of Nyayo philosophy. Nyayo philosophy. Where did it come from? It came from a number of sources. One, Moi's long political career. Moi's long political career. That is basically experience. Moi had been Kenyatta's vice president for 12 years. So he had learned the policies that government wanted to implement, and therefore he promised Kenyans he will enforce those policies. The next origin of Nyayo philosophy was biblical teachings. Biblical teachings. Teachings from the Bible, which teach concepts of love, brotherhood, and unity. So Moi, being a religious person, borrowed from religion, from the Bible, the concept of love, where he said, love begets unity. Unity begets prosperity in the nation. And finally, African traditions. African traditions. African traditions of communalism. He wanted Kenyans to share. He wanted Kenyans to share. That is, he did not want Kenyans to be selfish. Just like what Kenyatta had done in the philosophy of African socialism and Harambee, he also borrowed that concept from African traditions and brought into his own philosophy. So the three sources of Nyayo philosophy include Moi's long political career, that is, his long experience in politics, biblical teachings, concept of love, which begets unity, which begets prosperity, and finally, traditions, where Africans are known for their concept of sharing. Pillars of Nyayo philosophy. It has three pillars. Nyayo philosophy has three pillars. One is love, two, peace, and three, unity. Nyayo philosophy has three pillars of love, peace, and unity. Love. When you love someone, you cannot harm them. Meaning, when there is love, there is peace. When there is peace, there is unity. So the three pillars were very instrumental during Moi's era. During this time, the overriding concept was being mindful of other people's welfare, So President Moi, in his philosophy, encouraged Kenyans to be mindful of other people's welfare. That is, being loving to others. When you love others, there is peace, there is stability. When there is peace, there is unity in the nation. And having said that, I want us to look at the significance of Nyayo philosophy. Significance of Nyayo philosophy. Significance of Nyayo philosophy. The following achievements were made during Moi's era. 1. Education. Education. Through the concept of Nyayo or Nyayoism, more schools were constructed and equipped, and especially the girl child education was a great beneficiary of Nyayo philosophy. For example, if you go across the country, in every province, in every district, there is a Moi girls' school, which was financed from the proceeds of Nyayo philosophy. So to that extent, you can see Nyayo philosophy boosted education in Kenya. Another one is health was boosted. Health was boosted. Health facilities were constructed. Health facilities were constructed and equipped from the proceeds of Nyayoism. You go across the country, in all the provinces, in all the districts, in all the divisions, there were Nyayo wards. Nyayo wards. These wards catered for the sick, catered for those who are looking for the medical attention. So across the country, the medical field, the health sector was also a beneficiary of Nyayo philosophy. Agriculture was also a beneficiary. For instance, President Moi played a leading role in soil conservation measures. Agriculture also was a beneficiary of Nyayo philosophy. For example, President Moi himself participated in soil conservation measures. President Moi participated in soil conservation measures. Himself, in person. So if you look at your book, if you look at your KLB book, on page 88, you'll see a photograph of the president participating in a soil conservation project. That means he was concerned about agriculture, he was concerned about the environment. Nyayo T zones were established. Nyayo T zones were established in our major water catchment areas, were established in the major water catchment areas. That means the president was very concerned about agriculture. Another development that you find from Nyayo philosophy was Nyayo philosophy promoted peace and stability in the country, as the pillars emphasized on the need for love, peace, and unity. As the pillars emphasized on the concepts on love, peace, and unity. So during Moi's time, during Moi's regime, it was the most peaceful era in this country. Why? Because the pillars of his philosophy were love, peace, and unity. Love, peace, and unity. So in this country, the most peaceful time was between 1978 and 2002 when the president was there. Another achievement was sports and cultural activities were promoted. Sports and cultural activities were promoted by the philosophy. Were promoted by the philosophy or through the philosophy. For instance, I want to mention this, that big or international sports stadiums were constructed from the efforts that were mobilized through Nyayoism. E.g., you can give example of Moi Sports International Stadium, Kasarani International Stadium. President Moi, in his concept of love, peace, and unity, in his Nyayo philosophy, he encouraged cultural activities, competition, music competition, and drama competition in schools were encouraged. That promoted unity and peace and love within the boundaries of Kenya. And finally, Nyayo philosophy promoted national integration, as different communities were brought together and they peacefully coexisted. And they, keyword, peacefully coexisted. So, national integration was one impact of Nyayo philosophy, promotion of sports and cultural activities. For example, we saw the building of Moi Sports International Stadium. Drama festivals in schools were encouraged during Moi's time. In fact, every year the president would invite the winners in the national competitions to State House and he would reward them. It also promoted peace and stability in the country. I said this was the most peaceful moment for Kenya between 1978 to 2002, as one of the pillars of Nyayoism was peace. I also said that Nyayo philosophy encouraged development or growth of agriculture. For example, the president himself led the country in soil conservation measures. Page 88 of your textbook, you can see that photograph of the president participating in a soil conservation measure, laying foundation for Agabion. President also took part in the establishment of Nyayo T-zones to protect the major water catchment areas. It also promoted education. For example, Moi girls' schools have been established across the country through the efforts of Nyayo philosophy. And finally, health has also been boosted through the concept of Nyayo philosophy, as resources were availed to build and equip hospitals at the divisional level, at the district level, and the provincial level from the resources that were raised from Nyayo fundraisers. Viewers, that is the end of my lesson. Until next time, I wish you good time. Thank you.